There's a lot of lawyers in Washington, D.C., some good, some bad. Ben England is one of the good ones. For 18 years, he was a researcher, investigator, and legal counsel at the Food and Drug Administration. He explained how the regulatory agency does its job.
FDA's primary mission is to protect the public. Their job is to both try to prevent unsafe products from getting onto the market that could affect consumers. Their jurisdiction is actually quite broad. They have jurisdiction over foods and pharmaceuticals.
The FDA has a lot of responsibility and a wide jurisdiction, so it's easy to get confused about how they actually operate.
What does the FDA do?
The FDA?
Help me out with my diet? I don't know.
They're presumably protecting the food supply.
I would assume it's to make sure that food is safe for human consumption.
Presumably.
I work for the FDA. I do.
And so you want to tell me what they really do?
They protect the nation's food supply. We regulate about a third of the nation's economy. We regulate about a third of the nation's economy.
A third of the nation economy. They're trying their best, but I think we're overwhelmed by all the different products that are out there right now, and it makes it pretty scary. They're having troubles keeping ahead of it.
The public is losing confidence in the food supply, the safety of the food supply. And that's bad news for the food industry if people don't trust that its products are safe.
I don't think that they do enough to protect us, and I don't think that the labeling of foods is that they're doing a very good job of labeling of foods.
Why isn't the FDA protecting me from trans fats and hydrogenated oils?
The FDA doesn't have the authority to recall foods. It relies on food companies.
In a sense, the industry is kind of regulating itself. It has been for probably 20 years. And so you end up with the agency trying to balance the interests. And this is where I think they run into political conflict. Because many people would argue that the only interest they should be balancing is the risk to the consumer. That's what they should be focusing on.
For many years, the Food and Drug Administration has considered partially hydrogenated oil to be generally recognized as safe. And for many years, it was. But in the last 20 years, it's been generally recognized as dangerous. And the FDA is derelict in not getting it out of our food supply.
We tried to set up an interview with someone from the FDA. We even stopped by the headquarters for a visit.
I'm staying outside the FDA headquarters. They've denied us an interview.
We only had one question.
Yeah. Well, then, no, that's the thing, is they won't even talk to us on the phone.
If food represents 1/3 of our economy, why isn't the Food and Drug Administration doing a thorough job in regulating it?
Turn it off, please.
But thanks to some burly security people,
You can't film inside of the building, sir.
we came, we saw,
Sir!
and they conquered.
I know a lot of people who are having difficult times reaching the agency, and some of them are in the press, and some of them are consumers, and some of them are consumer advocates, and some of them are attorneys trying to represent their clients.
There's a lot of work there for the FDA to do to protect the public's health. It doesn't have the funding to do it, and all too often, it doesn't have the will to do it either.
Thanks to wealthy corporations and a dysfunctional government, the FDA lacks the funding and staff to protect the food supply. That has been left to private citizens.
I'm a former lobbyist. I used to lobby in Washington, D.C. I lobbied there for years. I testified in Congress. I never bothered trying to get anything done in Washington, D.C. because I knew immediately I was going to be coming up against congressmen and senators who had been on the receiving end of campaign contributions from food companies.
And a part of it is the media. We have so much media hype today. I call it media nutrition, media supplements. And individuals today are really being told by magazines and newspapers what's healthy and what's not healthy to them. And here's something very significant. You are being told what the food manufacturers want you to hear.
All in favor? Say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
A unanimous vote by the New York City Board of Health means by July of 2008, food served at all of New York City's 26,000 restaurants will be free of trans fats.
It is up to the state law to ensure that the food supply is safe for the consumers in California. If there's a deadly component in our food supply, the cooking oil, we should take it out and make sure that the health and the well-being of Californians are of utmost importance to all the business owners, especially here in California. For example, we banned the use of lead in paints because we know that lead is bad for public health. But we know that trans fats is bad for public health. Why can't we just ban that as well?
Dr. Fuster told us earlier that modern medicine has failed in preventing the diseases that are affecting us most. He says it's because our focus has been on treatments, and the treatments are far too expensive.
So what we should do, and now we have to focus our attention, we should search why we failed.
It's greed. It's greed, that's what it is. You know, you talk about treatment and getting paid are directly correlated.
I believe one of the reasons that people have not associated food with the disease is because a part of it is they don't understand that what you eat becomes you.
Trans fats in some ways really like ionizing radiation. We know that it's very dangerous at medium doses and high doses, and it's really impossible to say that there's any safe level. So I think the sensible thing is really to have no trans fats from partially hydrogenated oils in our diets.
People forget the major impact the diet has on the public's health. It's easy to forget when the food tastes so good. The kind of foods we're eating are a major cause of obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, osteoporosis, tooth decay, and on and on.
In fact, one of the great challenges we have today is how we promote health or how we prevent strokes and heart attacks. So, what is the answer? The answer is not me telling you this. The answer is you. Because the American public knows very well that what I mentioned, cigarette smoking is bad, blood pressure is bad, lack of exercise is bad, obesity is bad. They all know that. So the issue is not that I have to tell you. The issue is, are you ready in your life to put health as a priority, or you are not?
Health should be everyone's priority. And the bottom line is that trans fats and processed foods do not contribute to healthy living.
I wasn't suing because trans fat makes you fat. I was suing because trans fat makes you dead.
Foods that contain these harmful fats are not part of a nutritional diet. And if you're eating trans fat, I urge you to stop.
As we learn more and more about how what we eat affects our long-term health and well-being, we find that overprocessing of food is having many severe consequences.
Eliminating them from your diet can be a first step on the road to healthy living.
We're killing ourselves, and we're digging our own graves with our teeth.
Personal responsibility is the cornerstone of any diet change. The other is good information. You have to look past the food companies and the media because they're sales-driven enterprises. They're not concerned with your health.
And their main concern is the shelf life of the product, and our main concern is the shelf life of the individual.
All markets are sales-driven. If we start buying healthier foods, then these companies will be forced to sell us healthier foods. You have to take responsibility for yourself. You can't wait for your government or these corporations to regulate the safety of our food.
The FDA is inspecting virtually nothing when it comes into the United States market.
I think the problem is greed.
Greed.
We're killing the planet by being greedy.
Greed?
Greed!